why are more women than ever choosing Natural Cycles? The hormone-free, side-effect-free way to take control of your fertility. Natural Cycles is a birth control app that uses your temperature to find your fertile window. It is more than a basic cycle tracking app. Natural Cycles is the only FDA-cleared and CE-marked birth control app and has helped millions prevent and plan for pregnancy naturally. Save 15% when you sign up today with code RADIO15. Learn more at naturalcycles.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, then their tool will provide options from other companies so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Some of the Beastie Boys were like, babysitters at my after school program. And so there's like literally I grew up and wherever I looked, wherever I went, my option was always first and foremost art.
Welcome to Story and Craft. Now, here's your host, Mark Preston.
All right, here we go. Back again, another episode of Story and Craft. So glad to have you back. If this is your first episode, my name is Mark Preston, and glad to have you. Thanks for stopping by. Today, sitting down with the very talented actor Felix Solis. You might know him from Ozark or The Rookie Feds. He is now in the new Netflix series Sirens. Very cool show. Great ensemble cast. You got Megan Fahey, Millie Alcock, Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon, Glenn Howerton. But Felix's character, he alone is worth the watch. Really enjoy his character in the show. Great conversation. Really enjoy the opportunity to share a little time with Felix. And by the way, don't forget to stop by storyandcraftpod.com. Everything you could possibly want to know about the show, past guests, and more, it is right there. Just check it out anytime. Now also, if you would do me a little favor, pop open your podcast app. Make sure to follow Story and Craft. That way you get the notification when a new episode rolls out. Also, don't forget to like the show, like the episode. Of course, it helps people find Story and Craft, which I appreciate greatly. All right, let's jump right into it. Today, it is Felix Solis Day on Story and Craft. Where you at today?
I'm in New York City. I'm in the city I was born and raised in, which is always nice to be back here when I'm here.
When we first connected, I heard the Sirens. It's like, he's got to be in New York.
Yeah.
It's my like studio, after about a week in staying in New York, when I come home, and it's so quiet, it's hard to sleep,
Your ears ringing. Yeah, completely. But yes, I'm currently in New York City. We've been here for about a week doing a press junket for Sirens, and I'm born and raised here. I grew up in Chelsea, in the Greenwich Village of New York City. My dad is still here. My mom has since moved on to probably bigger and better things than what we're doing here. But so I'm here, and I have a little studio in New York City that I can call home whenever I want to come back and I miss it.
Where are you living full time now? Where do you call home?
I bought my first home ever in a small little town outside of Decatur, Georgia.
They're doing a lot of filming in Atlanta, so that's probably.
I was introduced to Atlanta when I went there a couple years back to do a TV show called Ozark, and they shot the entire series there. And so at first I was going back and forth, and then when my character was then fully committed into the storyline, I had to move, and so I had spent some time. I spent almost 2.5 years, almost 3 years in Atlanta working on that show, and so I had a 3-year period of time to know the neighborhoods, get to know them, and figure that out. Still didn't mean I wanted to buy. It just simply meant I knew it, because when I was done with the show and I was able to save up enough money to buy my first home, I came back here to New York looking for something, and what I was offered was, frankly, an insult. It's New York City. And then I went to Los Angeles looking for the same thing, because I figured I'd work there too. And it was also a little tough with what I had to offer and what was going to be given in return, where I kind of not equal. And then I went back to Georgia, and they were like, "How much of this forest do you want?" And so
I grew up in Dallas, and for me, the Atlanta area is kind of like Georgia's Dallas,
Sure.
And it's a lot of driving. You get a pretty decent amount for your money, and it's just it's kind of a nice home base.
It feels more rewarding, and it's not so far away that I can't just jump on a quick plane if I have to, although I fear flying. But I will jump.
Especially
on
lately, huh? I don't really fly that much, but now it's like just watching the news. Is it a function of just getting older? It's like
I don't know. I mean, I think the atmosphere up there is changing as I look out of my 15-floor window out into Times Square. But like the atmosphere up there is different now. The currents and the cross currents and just the. And you can choose to say global warming. You can choose not to. I think there's something different. Things have changed up there, and unfortunately, what has not changed and upgraded and updated to accommodate that kind of change up there are the equipments that they're sending up there. So
yeah. And then they got that whole air traffic control thing and all that.
The glitch at Newark. Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
everything went black for like 60 seconds or something. I don't know. I'm misquoting the time frame, but everything went dark for a decent amount of seconds that I can't even imagine.
You know what I think is so funny is I hear somebody with like a New York accent sounding as chill as possible. Like, hey, be careful. I would be sitting there, my hair would be on fire. I'd be freaking out, going, okay, all these planes. I'd be like John Candy in that movie, Summer Rental.
Oh yes,
where the fly lands on his radar. It's funny. I went and I did a cursory checking around on the Webernets, and I went to your Instagram, and I have a feeling. I was like, when I saw this, like, wait a minute, okay, this guy, I think he's part of my tribe. You got an Anthony Bourdain quote, you have an Alan Watts quote, and then you had a few pictures of Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm like going, okay, this guy, I got to talk to him. Big Anthony Bourdain fan. So anytime I see somebody posting, I feel like this is tribe of people who like.
I learned a lot from reading his books initially, and then I had the pleasure of having an interaction with him at Lachal, the Lachal down on
really
in the I went in not expecting to see him, but I went in to have a steak and a glass of wine, and I'm sitting there. Just during the baseball season, I was sitting there just having a glass at the bar, sitting wine. I had filet and a glass of Bordeaux, and I'm just sitting there. And these two guys sit next to me. They're coming from the game. They're talking about the game, the Yankee game, and they're just shooting the shit. And so then, sure enough, he walks in. He walks into the restaurant. And he says hello to his bartender. He goes into the kitchen. He comes back, and he's just saying hello. Really cool.
Was this back when he was working there, or did he just happen to pop back in?
No, it was just this is after Kitchen Confidential.
Okay.
After the travel show, like all of that. He just came in and he was saying hello, and he said hello, and he overheard the two guys talking about the Yankee game, and they started talking about sports, and they started mentioning about they asked him about the hot dogs at Yankee Stadium, and he said they're great. They're great. And then he's like, yeah. And then one of the guys goes, yeah, I love the hot dogs. They're great. A little ketchup, and he went, what?
Oh.
He went, what? What did you just say? And he goes, yeah, throw a little ketchup. And he goes, let me tell you something. He literally said this. I heard him say this with my own ears. He said, let me tell you something. Anyone who puts ketchup on their hot dog is, and if I can curse, allow me to. He said, anyone who puts ketchup on a hot dog is a fucking asshole. I said, I had three thoughts run through my mind at the same time. One is, thank you, universe, for allowing me to be sitting right here in this moment to watch that man say those words. Two, I am never putting ketchup on my hot dog ever again. And three, I thought, there's a man who knows exactly what he wants and what he knows and how he is. And it was just a beautiful thing to watch him. But yeah, I've learned a lot. From him and by watching him and studying him,
I think he's going to go down as I don't mean to immediately start grooving on Anthony Bourdain, but it's like not often. He comes up occasionally. I've had an opportunity to speak with, like I talked to Andrew Zimmern, and he was talking to me, sharing some anecdotal things. And he had just an interesting and very, I don't want to say simplistic as like a boring look on life, but he always would say he always would quote his father when he said, I'm a man of simple means. He always would say that. And I dug that. In other words, that he could be just as excited about a hot dog as he was about like foie gras.
Absolutely, yeah. Completely, yeah. Or walking down an alleyway in the middle of Vietnam, or swanky fucking diamond-studded rooftop in on Park Avenue. Like they all were equally as fascinating and equally as simply engaging to him, which was really cool.
Yeah, and like I said, I saw that quote from Alan. Are you an Alan Watts fan, or you just happen to run across like a quote? Because he has.
Yeah, I saw the quote and then I dug him up, because I am one of these guys who is like, if something strikes me and if something moves me to the point of thought, that I go, where's the source? What is that source, and where does the source come from? So I hadn't known him, and then I saw that quote and I thought, let me look into him. And
I used to live in the North County of San Diego in a city called Encinitas. Used to drive up to LA to, I worked on the radio just briefly up there. Whenever I'd drive home after my shift, I would kick it on. I think it'd be like Radio Pacifica or something like that. They'd play the old recordings of him. Yeah. And I just got real into him. And back, oh God, this is back when, let's say LimeWire or whatever was around, download, you're giving your computer a virus.
Yeah.
And I just got hours and hours and hours. I've got so many of his recordings, and then fast forward, we're in the Spotify era where I can just go dig up, whatever I want to listen to. But this is just a cursory skimming of a little bit of info. But did you do work on stage with Philip Seymour Hoffman? Did y'all have? Is that?
I'm a child of the boards. I grew up in New York City, in the Greenwich Village, Chelsea area of New York City, where where your first introduction to performance is on stage. It wasn't Los Angeles, where you have an opportunity to, start your career or get your chops in front of camera. New York City, is a historically theatrical city, and so I did a lot of theater growing up. And one of them was actually on the very street that I'm talking to you from, on 42nd Street. There was a theater row, and I did a show, a showcase show, my first equity showcase show, and a friend of mine came and saw it. Dear friend, who's still my friend to this day, super accomplished actor, David Zayas, and he pointed me to the theater company that he was a member of, the Labyrinth Theater Company. And at the time, Philip Seymour Hoffman was endeavoring into his first directorial piece, where he was directing a play that Stephen Adler-Girgis wrote called In Arabia We'd All Be Kings. And while they were considering casting and looking for actors to do that production, my buddy David Zayas went to them, who had been a member at the time, and said, I just saw this guy on stage, and I think he's good, he's great, I think we should introduce him. And so they brought me in, and after sitting and talking and having a chat with them, and they came and saw the show, the writer, and they all agreed that I should be a part of it. So I was in the very first play that Phil directed. Our friendship started there.
Where was this in the arc of his career, roughly? Had he already been doing things on camera that were notable?
Yeah. He had, I think he had done Scent of a Woman. And then he was moving into more stuff. Maybe even might have been shooting or could have just finished Talented Mr. Ripley. So he was in that era before he really started to sort of come into his own and explode with things like Capote and Boogie Nights and things like that. So yeah, during that period, it was all during that period. We all sort of started really shining and stepping up. And the theater company was very helpful in that. The productions that we did, that Stephen Adler-Girgis had written and that Phil had directed, were doing well. They were succeeding, and they were putting our theater company on the map. So that also helped. And then he continued to skyrocket, and our friendship continued to blossom, and we were very, very close, very, very close.
I remember watching an interview. I think it was inside the actor's studio. I think I was watching it. This is the impression I got, and over the years of seeing interviews, that the stage thing was for him. It was. I don't mean to sound highfalutin, as they say, but for him, it was art. For him, it was, he's like, I just got a sense that if you're going to do it, you got to take it seriously, that kind of thing. I was speaking with a guest a couple of episodes ago about him, and those great big roles were awesome. But the thing I loved him in always was these little, just like Along Came Polly, Twister to one of my favorites was Almost Famous. Just see these little roles, but they just pop. Or essentially, maybe you're a day player, or a weak player in
Sure.
something, and you can bring that to life. That's
Sure.
also
Yeah. Montgomery Clift was once interviewed when he was nominated for an Academy Award for a Judgment at Nuremberg. He played a role where he was on the stand, and I think it might have been one scene, could have even possibly been a monologue. I can't quite remember. But Monty Clift was interviewed, and they challenged him, and they said, how do you feel about having such a small part in this film and yet being acknowledged for an Academy Award for it? He may have even won it. I'm not sure, but in the response to that, he said, that to be an actor is to play any part, large or small, that has something important to say. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Phil fit that. I think whenever Phil decided to do something, it wasn't just to act, although he was a firm believer that if you were asked to act, that is the biggest compliment that one could ever get as an actor, is to be asked to do it, because it's so difficult for us to even get hired, that when you're asked to do it, it's a humbling and grateful. It's an honor. And so that, but I also believe that he told me, he said the most important thing the biggest responsibility you have, Felix, as an actor, is to the character you're playing. And so it's always going to be just about that and what you're doing to the other person in the scene, which is how I've lived my career as an actor ever since. He shared that with me. And but I think it was also that there was something important. The character had something really important to say, and that just drives an actor into the strongest creative energy you can, come with.
I agree. Especially when it comes to him, you look at the arc of all the different things he's done. It's like he's been very memorable in everything. He was very memorable in everything he did. Going to the theater. I mean, you grew up in New York. Did you do kind of that standard New York training, thing, or were you sort of on the job training kind of a guy?
Well, it's interesting because I got a scholarship to study theater at Marymount Manhattan College on the Upper East Side on 71st between 2nd and 3rd. I went to study, and then I want to say maybe a year in, I started getting cast in regional theater. Actually, ironically enough, my very first regional theater gig was at the Dallas Theater Center.
How did you book something down in Dallas?
So the casting directors, in New York, the casting directors are always, hired to try and find talent to go to those places. And this one playwright, his name is Octavio Solis, who's from Texas. He wrote this beautiful play called Dreamlandia, and the casting directors that they used for the production were here in New York. And I came in and I auditioned for it to play Pepin, who's kind of like in the Italian tragicomedy, he's the fool who's sometimes, and in this particular interpretation of his kind of stereotypical part, he was an adult, a 10-year-old boy in the body of an adult, in the body of a full man. And
how old were you when you were doing this?
Oh my goodness, this was. I was in college, so in my 20s, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's got to be exciting for you. Here you are, this New York, and now you're heading down to Dallas, which is
packing my bags. I'm being flown to Dallas. I'm getting my own apartment. We're hanging out at is it Turtle Creek? Is that what?
Yeah. I'm sure you spent some time on Greenville Avenue, also.
On Greenville, I went straight to Deep Ellum and was hanging out in Deep Ellum. And
you hit the deep end immediately. Yeah.
I went straight to the jugular, but yeah, that's the very first thing that I did. But it was that I started just doing a lot of theater and pushing myself. So to answer your question more directly, when I was in school, this started happening, and so I had to make a choice where I was like, oh, do I stay in school, or do I start doing the thing that I went to school to do, and I'm getting an opportunity and I'm being asked to do it, so I might as well. So I had to make the choice, and I'm a beauty school dropout. Sometimes I like to joke. I left school to work as an actor, and they weren't too happy with it.
It's sort of like being a college basketball player, and they're like, "Hey, you want to make millions and millions?
Call you up.
You could always go back to school." Yeah,
sure. I kind of did go back to school, in so much as that when I became a member of the Labyrinth Theater Company, of which we've been speaking about, that was for me a study. I had at the time, I want to say maybe 60 or so members who were equally as talented as the next and equally as more talented than me. And so I was always in an environment where I was learning and by observation and by participation. And ultimately, I think that's the way you grow, is that you know, by doing the thing, you know.
Well, who's floating around there with you? Who's there
Sam
anybody notable?
Rockwell,
Oh, really?
Elizabeth Rodriguez, Liza Colon-Zayas, who just successfully and beautifully and deservedly just won an Emmy for her interpretation on The Bear. And she just won an Emmy. And her husband is David Zayas, who is my dearest and closest friend, who I'm going to see in a little bit. We got a fun poker tournament. We're going to play for some money, to raise some money for a theater company here in New York. And it was them and Phil and Steven and Sam Rockwell, and oh my goodness, the list goes on and on. John Ortiz was artistic director.
Really?
Yeah, he and Phil co-artistic directed, and we had people who were already as established, but then later on became a part of us. Cara Young, who's currently on Broadway, who's got her 4th consecutive Tony nomination, was a part of our theater company, and just all these incredible artists who. Daphne Rubin Vega, like these are all incredible. Yul Vasquez, like all these incredible actors who were working and continue to work were all members of my theater company.
Sam Rockwell, I've got an actor crush on him, man.
Yeah,
Sam, he's kind of on a Mount Rushmore guys. Like I'd love to sit down with him. He's another one of those guys. He shows up and everything he shows up in, he just brings it to life. You know?
Totally.
Meet Natural Cycles, the only FDA-cleared and CE-marked birth control app that's 100% natural, hormone-free, and side effect-free. Here's how it works. The app analyzes daily changes in your body temperature to find your fertile window, so you can plan or prevent pregnancy naturally. Natural Cycles is a clinically proven, non-hormonal birth control option that's 93% effective with typical use and 98% effective with perfect use. No synthetic hormones, just science. And if you're ready to start family planning, switching from preventing to planning a pregnancy is as easy as tapping a button. Plus, the Natural Cycles app makes tracking fertility easy. You can measure your temperature trends using an Oura Ring, Apple Watch, or our Bluetooth thermometer, which is free when you sign up for an annual subscription. Join over 4 million registered users who are taking control of their fertility naturally. Save 15% when you sign up with code RADIO15 at naturalcycles.com. That's Radio 15 for 15% off today.
For full details, including terms and conditions, visit unlock.com/legal. Call 1-888-780-6854 to speak with a representative today. Actor Portrayal. Terms and conditions apply. Not available in all states.
Hey, homeowners, can I get a minute of your time? If you need cash but don't want another loan, I've got the perfect solution. You can access up to $500,000 of your home's equity without monthly payments or interest ever with Unlock. This isn't a loan. It's a home equity agreement. With Unlock, you may qualify for cash today in exchange for a share of your home's future value. No debt, no extra bills, just financial flexibility on your terms. Use the money however you want. Home improvements, paying off debt, investing, or boosting your retirement savings. Unlike HELOCs, home equity loans, or cash out refis, there are no monthly payments. No stress. You've built this equity. Now it's time to use it. Go to unlock.com for more information.
Don't wait. Call 888-780-6854 to unlock the equity in your home and get up to $500,000 in cash with no monthly payments and no interest ever. Call 888-780-6854, 888-780-6854, or visit unlock.com. That's unlock.com for more information.
Hey, it's Mark Preston, and I would like to tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors, X-Chair. Whether you're working from home or in the office, if you have a job or a task that has you sitting for a long period of time, this is the chair for you. Very comfortable, very customizable. They'll make it pretty much any way you want it. The look, the feel, the fabrics, everything. Plus, this is the kind of chair you can adjust to make it fit you just right. No matter your body type, it's spot on. I love my X-Chair. It has the Elemax cooling, heating, and massage technology. It is going to make your lower back feel so very good. Got to throw a little bit of love to X-Chair. It's the chair I'm sitting in every time I talk to a guest. So I've had a lot of time to have my tush in this chair, and the tush, the back, everybody's happy. Just go to storyandcraftpod.com/chair. Once again, X-Chair, check it out, storyandcraftpod.com/chair. Love my X-Chair. Your back will thank you. Growing up in New York, though, were you coming from an artistic family, or are you kind of the odd man out, like doing
contrarily, my father is still 82 years old. He's a plumber, carpenter, an electrician, a handyman. I remember him saying to me affectionately when I said, "Dad, I just got a scholarship to go study theater, And then he was like, "Oh, interesting." And then right around the same time, I got this gig, like I was saying, at the Dallas Theater. And I said, "Dad, they're going to give me, at the time it was $400 a month or something, or a week or whatever to do the show." But I was like, they're paying me to do this, play. And I remember my father sitting there. He puts Siri to shame. He sat there and he looked at me and he went, "Well, I guess if there are people out there who are willing to pay you to do that, then you should be smart enough to take it. So go ahead and take it."
Very pragmatic. Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of that way. I think he even may have said, if they're stupid enough to pay you to do something like that, then you should be smart enough to take it.
One way or another, it's like, go do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dad. My dad's a man he works with his hands and builds and still builds and, and does that. And my mother was a seamstress. She was artistic and crafty. She would do these really cool little artistic side projects for designers. She once worked with a gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he was the one responsible for doing the Christmas decorations at Saks Fifth Avenue and the windows and all of that. Yeah. And my mom would be sort of the, one of his shop workers, if you will, who would help him build the trees and the little railroads and the stop signs and the things. She would do that. So she was creative. And my brother, who is my full brother, I was the youngest of six, but my brother is the one who is my dad and my mom's. The other siblings that I have are from another father. But my closest brother is a fine visual artist. He's a drawer and a painter and just a fine. He, at one point, was even courted by Marvel Comics. So there's art in the blood, but I'm kind of the only one who has continued to actually, make it a profession, make it a career.
Yeah, but growing up in New York, I always had this as a kid down in the South in Dallas. Yeah. For me, New York was always there was always like a buzz. There's always something. There's something. It's easy to get swept into it if you have the inclination to kind of get into it.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. No. When I was born, we lived on 100 West 73rd Street, right on the Upper West Side in Manhattan, and I was born. And then when I was 8, the owner of the building sold the building, and my mother and my father were the superintendents of the building, so the new owners wanted their own supers, rightfully so. And so the owner of the building who had sold had 2 other buildings. He had one on 110th and Lenox in Harlem, Spanish Harlem, and then he had another one on 15th Street between 8th and 9th and Chelsea. Mm-hmm. My father took a drive up to 110th and Lenox, took a drive down to 15th between 8th and 9th, and he got the sense, he was like, I think I'd feel safer, I'd feel more comfortable if my children grew up in this neighborhood. And so I had the fortunate pleasure of having my mom and my dad be a superintendent of a building in Chelsea, which allowed for me to grow up in Chelsea and Greenwich Village, which is an interesting thing because, of course, in hindsight, you never know. I never knew I was poor. My mother and my father never behaved poor, so I never knew I was poor. I didn't know what that was until later on, right? And it's similar in Greenwich Village and Chelsea, where I thought I was in a really cool, bohemian, artistic, creative place. And now there's these studies shown where, like, everyone thought that, that Greenwich Village was this bohemian thing. But in truth, it's still, at the time when I was born in 71, at the time, 71, 72, 73, early 80s, it was the most expensive neighborhood to live in still.
Really? Really?
Okay. Absolutely. You could rent a place for, I don't know, $34 a month or something on the Upper West Side or something. And in Greenwich Village, that same space would be $100 or something. So there was still a historical, interesting misperception that Greenwich Village was this bohemian, poor, we're all on the streets, we're hanging out. It had that. And I grew up in that. But it wasn't, there was an interesting article recently released about that said, people misunderstand that Greenwich Village was like that. But I will say, to your point directly, yes. If you had to, if you were put in an environment where your environment was going to dictate what you would gravitate to, or what you would end up having to do for a career, for a life study, it was all artistic. Everywhere I looked, the urban blight movement was there. Some of the Beastie Boys were like, babysitters at my after school program in PS 41. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I have a photo of me as a little boy walking in a swimming pool on Carmine Street, and there's Keith Haring sitting on the floor with his mural having just being done. And like, so there's like, literally, I grew up in wherever I looked, wherever I went, my option was always first and foremost art and creativity. So, yeah.
Well, see, that's the way I always perceived New York. It was a little grittier, but you always had there was always a buzz, always something happening.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a suburban North Dallas kid, so for me that was just kind of exciting. That kind of an idea.
Absolutely.
But where are your people from originally?
It's interesting that you should say that, because I was about to mention that one of the other things that has defined who I am as a person is my multicultural upbringing, my multicultural environment that I grew up in. Right? Because my parents are from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
My mother was from a town called Cabo Rojo, which is a beach town, beautiful town. And my father was from a town called Patillas, which is up in the mountains, cows, sheep, that kind of thing. And they met there, were encouraged not to be together because my mother is an African Puerto Rican, so she's dark skinned. My father was an Italian Puerto Rican from more Spaniard, Italian, European descent, so he was lighter in skinned. That didn't go well with the family. So they sort of broke away from their childhood and their families in Puerto Rico to come to New York and have children, and that's where I came from. But they're Puerto Rican. I was born here of Puerto Rican parents, so they call me New Yorican.
So I'm curious, how did the Italian thing and as far as folks from Italy find their way to Puerto Rico? That seems, because I know there's a good few of them.
Yeah, it's just like so Puerto Rico, when you translate it, means rich port. And that port of Puerto Rico was literally rich in tactiles, in agriculture, in all kinds of things that were useful and wanted to be wanted by the rest of the world. And so it's no smooth that they traveled the distances to get to these places where they can, utilize, take advantage of, however you want to phrase the history of how that happened. But that it's definitely, it's a draw. That city, they call it La Isla del Encanto, which is the island of enchantment. So there's a draw.
I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, there's a draw to the island.
I live on South Padre Island. Now very South Texas, tip of Texas.
So I've swam. I've gone to the beach there where you're at. There's a beach there, no?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're literally the island itself is 2 miles. You have to take a 2-mile bridge across. The island's only got like a 3,000 full-time resident. Right now, I got tons of people.
I got a buddy, Raul Castillo, who's in and of himself an accomplished writer and actor and really fine person. He's from McAllen, Texas.
And
so we would go and visit him when he'd go visit his dad and his mom, and him and his brother took a drive from Austin, which is to me, I feel like one of my more dearest held cities in Texas, and we drove from Austin to South Padre Island. Yeah,
I've been wanting, just put me near the beach, and that I can do this job from anywhere. So but now, isn't John Leguizamo? Isn't he of Puerto Rican descent? Do you know, or is he?
No, I believe he's Colombian. I could be wrong.
Okay. I just the other day saw
South American. He's not Caribbean. He's South American. I want to say he's of Colombian descent.
I watched it not too long ago. His it's Latin Culture for Dummies or something. That one man stage. That was so great. But when he references the New York thing, that's kind of what brings me back. It's just again made it seem like such a cool place to grow up. But it's
multiculturalism has fared me well, has served me exponentially well. I've been fortunate enough and lucky enough and brave enough, and I was raised, confidently enough by my parents to be able to travel anywhere in the world. And there hasn't been one place in the world that I haven't visited that I haven't recognized the face of the person I'm looking at, because I grew up in New York City. I was in Jamaica, and I see the face of the Jamaicans that I knew who were right next door to me.
Yeah.
We were in Vietnam for a little while, and I would go and I saw the face of the woman who ran the laundromat across the street from where I grew up on 73rd Street. We were in Bulgaria, and there's a guy who's a plumber who used to work for my dad. And I was like, my goodness, you look just like the guy who used to work with my dad. So I've been all over the world and have been able to recognize the faces of the people in those countries because I grew up with those faces in my neighborhood, So I'm really grateful for that.
Being in New York, you had the theater thing, and of course you had the swing through Dallas. We mentioned that, but what was kind of what got you to? I'm assuming you made that trek to LA. Was it like you're like, okay, I got to go hit like pilot season and do that thing? Or?
Funny you should say that, because I didn't leave New York City until I was 43 years old, Mark. I was 43 when I left New York to go to Los Angeles. Yeah, I always liked affectionately saying at 43, I decided to go to LA and try and make it at 43 years old, right? Because I was 43 when I got hired to do a job in Los Angeles. That was a television job. It was a TV show. What's the name of it? I can't remember the name. But Colony. It was called Colony on TNT. And TNT, it was an alien overtake show, and I was hired to play.
Oh, yeah. That's with
right?
What's his name? Good looking dude.
Yes. Yeah. That guy. Yes. You're right.
By the way, it's so embarrassing. I try to think of somebody's name and my brain goes,
the minute you think of a person, the name flies right out of the head. But yes, you're in the right place.
That was a great little show. My kids liked that. We enjoyed that. Weren't you part of the resistance or something?
Correct.
In that? Yeah.
Geronimo, who talked to people over the radio waves. And,
yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And so that was the first time I had gone to LA with a legit job, and I was supposed to be on the show a bit longer than I ended up being, and I don't know, for reasons beyond my control, you rewrite stuff, you think a different direction, and so they kind of killed my character off on the show. But I had already spent the money to be there for the 3 months that I had planned to be there, so I thought I'd stay. And almost 6.5 years later, I was leaving LA to come to Atlanta to do Ozark. So I was in New York City for 43 years doing work in New York. And going away, I went to Germany to shoot a film called The International with Clive Owen. So I was going away, I was leaving, but my home base was New York until I was 43. And then that's when I moved to Los Angeles.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think, you have different chapters. We do different things at different times. And I don't think you're ever too old to try something. And that's the moment you stop trying this stuff. You get, it's
Sure. I did that this very week. I'm 53 now, Mark, and this very week was the first time that I was given a stylist, right, for the press junket for Sirens. And
really, okay,
yeah, it's the first time. And I was like, here's a young, adorable young man, like just full of life and full of joy for what he does, and he would bring me these things that I was like, I would never wear a pair of white boots with silver tips on them like cowboy boots. And he said, why don't you try these? And then I tried, and then instead of going 53-year-old curmudgeon-y Felix going, no, I'm just going to wear my linen suit and walk away. I said, okay, sure. And I just kept saying yes to everything.
It's kind of fun to be the canvas.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of fun to be. Like, yeah, why not? Try it on. Let's see what happens. And
I was when I was younger, I was the whole idea. I mentioned this, in previous episodes. So pardon me if you're listening. You hear me say this all the time. Whenever I did day or week player stuff, that was easy because I can memorize a couple 3 pages at a time. The theater thing always intimidated me.
Sure.
Because it's like a whole script. But I love showing up and somebody's choosing your clothes. You know what it is? You have to make so many decisions in life all day long. So now somebody's like, you're wearing these shoes, these socks. You have to wear a wedding ring because these characters. I was like, sure, just fine. That's one less thing I got to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is fun. And I appreciate that you say that you're a canvas because there's something beautiful about that, about just being like, all right, what do you think? Are there times when you have to go, okay, this is so extreme that we're on extreme opposite ends of this point of view of who we think this character that I'm portraying is, and so we should sit down and have a conversation? Sure. But for the most part, in regards to these kinds of things, press junkets and photo shoots and red carpets and things, I go, fuck it, just I'll wear whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Tell me what I want. What do you want me to wear? I'll put it on. Who cares?
Shepherd me to where you need me to be. Tell me what to do, and I'll take it from there. But now, do you have any family, any kids rolling around, or?
I don't have kids that I know of, Mark. Not that I know of, but yeah, the partnership I've been in a 16-year partnership with an incredible woman, Lisa Fernandez, who's I call her affectionately the CEO of my life, and that's it. My mom, like I said, passed. My dad is still here, and I'm the youngest of 6, 3 of which are no longer. Oh,
you're the youngest. Okay.
The youngest of 6, yeah. 3 of which are no longer with us, unfortunately. But my sister is still here. She works. She's the head of payroll at Saturday Night Live, so that's kind of fun for her to be in the business and not be an artist. Yeah, and my brother, like I said here, incredible artist who's raising his little boy Jason now, and they're within arm's reach of me, which is always nice. But yeah, that's us.
That's so you're able to be fully mobile and jump. And if you got a project,
yeah. I mean, we're sitting in one little struggle, literally as we speak. Before I jumped on with you, was we have 2 rescues. I rescued 2. We've since rescued 2 pit bulls. One in Los Angeles at Downey, at the rescue center at Downey, and then this one we found in Atlanta running across the track. A little one, Jojo Dancer. And so we're dealing with sort of, my partner is starting to work more, and so she's going to go away. She's going to be doing a show at a theater in West Virginia, and I'm going to be hopefully trying to, get some work outside, because I've been asked to consider coming back on a show called The Rookie that I had recurred on for a little bit, and so we'll both be out of the house, right? And then we have these 2 dogs that are rescues that are, just rescues are different. They're beautiful in their way and in their own broken complexity, but they're also, demanding. So we've been trying to struggle with. So that seems to be the only thing that seems to be not anchoring us, but giving us, more. We have to figure out how to maneuver through, But that,
I'm the same way when it comes to dogs. When it comes to dogs, I'm not, like I said, my daughter's in study in Europe, and I'm like, I gotta go and go see her. And I'm like, they've got a year-old golden retriever, and I don't know. Do I want to? My favorite people are the ones that actually, okay, what about the pooch? What's the best thing for the pet?
Sure.
I'm like, so
we were literally just handling it right now. We're literally, before I got on the phone on the podcast with you, I was ordering her a new harness because she's getting a little reaction to the other harness, and so I got to order it. And then but it's beautiful. It's all worth it, especially for me. The breed that I think that gets such a bum rap is the breed that I just instinctually have always had a draw to, and they're beautiful, and we're doing our best to learn and teach ourselves how to best set them up for success and be ambassadors for their breed. So it takes work and a commitment.
So not only do you like Anthony Bourdain, but you're also a dog person. I'm falling in love here now. Speaking of the Rookie, I think you're the 3rd. See, Michael Beach has been on, of course, but Melissa O'Neill, one of the most popular episodes I've ever had. She is still consistently, people are still wanting to go back and check her out. She is such a charmer.
I'm a fan. I'm a super fan of hers. Super fan.
She's very zen.
Yeah, she's cool. Yeah, we actually meditate together, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, we had she was telling me about a trip she had made down, I think it's somewhere Central or South America with her brother, and she was telling me this, she is just so charming. My kids, it's one of our family shows. We watch. I haven't watched The Rookie at all this year. Rookie Feds. Well, I know this is no longer on, but my 2 oldest, my daughter's teaching school in New Orleans, and my son's going to graduate. But when they get down here, we're going to power through the season. But you got to get back on there. Where that's our show. That's
I'm hoping that that things go well and that I can get back on there. But that shoots in Los Angeles. So again, we have to do the sort of negotiation of who's going to stay. And we have this incredible team of dog sitters who come to the home and stay, because again, they're rescues. So I shy away as much as I can to boarding and just let them stay in their home, which is their forever home, and just have people come and stay with them and visit and take care of them.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't like boarding. I'm sure they're wonderful people do boarding, but I just, when we went on I went on a cruise with my kids, and I'm like, I was thinking about the dog a lot. I was like, poor little guys, like, we were trying to think of ways to bring them with us,
Oh yeah,
But you, in working on on Ozark, how did that come together for you? Because that was a big fan of Jason Bateman and the creative vibe he's got going on. But how did that come together for you?
The literal answer was the basic simple process of auditioning. But the interesting thing about that particular audition was that up until that point, I was shying away, to put it politely, from playing roles like the one that I play on Ozark. Some that may consider it a negative stereotype, and I just couldn't. I just didn't want to do it because I had had a couple of experiences earlier in my career as an actor where I was auditioning for things that if I had gotten them and said yes, I don't know how I would have been able to explain it to my children after they were old enough to see it, because I think about that. And so I was shying away. The universe was not sending me what I wanted to do. I was sitting in my car. I'm staring at the Venice Pier on Washington Boulevard. And I just went, okay, universe, I get it. You're not giving me what I'm asking for. So I will humbly accept whatever it is you think I should do. And then a couple of days later, I got the audition for Ozark. And so I looked at that character and I said, okay, if this is what you are asking me to do, then I am going to try my hardest to do it with the highest of integrity, the highest of groundedness, the humanistic element of whoever these characters are usually portrayed as. I want to get them straight down to earth. And so I put together a self-tape that presented what I'm very proud to say is what ended up being on the show. So they chose me, Jason chose me. And I think that the network was also very happy. The streaming network, Netflix, was really happy with what I had done. But it was Jason who really was just like, you guys really just, you gotta let this guy be on.
Now, does he direct every episode?
He directed the one that I was introduced in.
Okay.
So yeah, he took it on, and he had taken on, I think maybe might have directed every episode in the first season, and then realized it was going to be a little more difficult as he moved on. So he pushed away a little bit after season one, but he had initially got into, I think it was an agreement that they had there. He said he'd do the show if he could direct the season. And then, yeah, they, it was the first job. Again, I'm 27 years professionally into it, and this was the first job 4 years ago or some odd 4 or 5 years ago where they asked me what I thought, man. Where they asked me what I thought, and I was like, "What? What? What are you talking about?" Right?
You're a year older than I am. So we grew up, but we were 8 kids in the 80s. You know, and you look back at Silver Spoons. Remember that show with Ricky Schroeder?
Absolutely.
You look at that's like charting of where Jason Bateman was going.
Totally.
He's one of those guys that really made that like a great transition, and really,
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact, he surprised me. I will say I have seen one episode of the show. I think the very first one. So I'm still not quite into the context of the full series yet, but I'm going to get into it. But it's just like comedy. That guy is a wordsmith and can riff, but the drama thing, he's on it as well. I just really enjoy stuff he's in. So that's another reason why it's in my queue, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, you said you didn't want to portray a negative stereotype. I'm assuming it's
he's the head of a drug
culture.
Cartel. Yeah, he's the head of a drug cartel. Yeah.
As far as because you mentioned that, and just as a side note, especially what we're living through right now, representation wise, do you feel it's going in the right direction, or do you feel it's I'm just kind of curious, since you're somebody that I can speak to that. It's something I'm noticing now with all the stuff going. Well, I say stuff, I don't mean you sound reductive, but all the nonsense that's going on, and taking people of a certain culture. I'm like, wait a minute, that's integral to.
That is very integral. Yeah, I mean, I think that the struggle has always been to see a lawyer instead of seeing a Latino lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. That we see a cop instead of a Puerto Rican cop. You see what I mean? And then that once we allow for it to just be the character and not the character associated with it, ethnicity, then I think that's the ultimate goal. I think in my eyes is to just be like, he or she are just they're actors who are playing characters as opposed to ethnic actors who are playing characters. And that seems to be, for me, will always be the case. And so when I'm asked to play an ethnic, and that's part of what I had decided I was going to do when I presented what I presented as far as Omar Navarro and Ozark, is that I thought, okay, let me take away what might be perceived as the ethnic part of this character, and let's insert in its place the human that is the character, the humanistic quality. He's a hardworking man. He has a family. He loves his children. It's a business he's trying to be successful in. Let's try and keep it in that world, and less of a world of, in my culture, we do this, and not allowing that to be a part of it. So for me, the thing that'll always want us all as actors, of culture and of ethnicity is to work towards that, where we work towards just being the actor in the role and not an ethnicity in a role.
That to me is the way I've always perceived it. But they say, people say, don't see color, you don't see culture. Whatever. I'm like, absolutely see it, because I want to know about the food. I want to know about how the first time I'm a fungo. The first time I was like, where has this been my whole life? What?
It's been right there the whole time. Sure. But that's also, that's part of what you're talking about. We were talking about before, like, you've been born in New York City, you would have known what mofongo was when you were 3, but being born in a certain part of a country or a certain part of the areas, you are what you have around you. Those are your immediate references, and then those of us who are brave enough go, all right, well, I want more than that. Like you said, I want more than just what's around me immediately that feels all the same, for lack of a better way of saying it. I want to go and see something else. Let me go see what that is. Let me introduce myself to that, and let me learn what that is. And that's, that's legit.
Well, I got to ask, Puerto Rican lineage, you got to know what's your kind of your go-to dish. What is something that is like home for you, kind of? Yeah,
my mother used to make these things called pasteles, which were like green banana. Yeah, well, there's pasteles in other different countries, but in Puerto Rico, these are banana blended mushed meat pies that are sometimes wrapped in banana leaves, sometimes wrapped in wax paper, or not wax paper, but like cooking paper. And then you boil them, and there's a meat inside. There's a pork and kind of a stewy kind of mixture that goes inside of it. And they're softer ones. And then there are those pastels that are the ones that are fried with the kind of
kind of like the Jamaican
patties.
Exactly.
Yeah. But to me, those were the things when I think Puerto Rican food, I think that, because that I see that, and I see myself in the kitchen with my mother, helping her scrape and cut and peel the bananas. I'm there watching her put the seasoning inside of it. I'm there helping her tie the meat pies, the pasteles, when we're done with making them. And I was in the kitchen. That's how I learned how to cook. I became a cook because I didn't have a babysitter, right? I became the cook because my mother couldn't afford a babysitter. So instead of putting me with a babysitter somewhere so she can cook, I was standing right next to her in the kitchen helping her cook, and that's how I know how to cook.
Why are more women than ever choosing natural cycles? The hormone-free, side-effect-free way to take control of your fertility. Natural Cycles is a birth control app that uses your temperature to find your fertile window. It is more than a basic cycle tracking app. Natural Cycles is the only FDA-cleared and CE-marked birth control app, and has helped millions prevent and plan for pregnancy naturally. Save 15% when you sign up today with code RADIO15. Learn more at naturalcycles.com.
You don't just live in your home. You live in your neighborhood as well. So when you're shopping for a home, you want to know as much about the area around it as possible. Luckily, Homes.com has got you covered. Each listing features a comprehensive neighborhood guide from local experts. Everything you'd ever want to know about a neighborhood, including the number of homes for sale, transportation, local amenities, cultural attractions, unique qualities, and even things like median lot size and a noise score. Homes.com. We've done your homework.
Last thing we do here, I always do my 7 questions.
Sure.
A little fun. I always ask the first one, which I always always talk food. What is your favorite comfort food? That thing that just, good day, bad day, doesn't make a difference. It just brings you right where you want to be.
Slice of pizza.
I got to know what's going on the pizza, and maybe is there a specific place? Because all New Yorkers I know got their place they go to.
Well, here's an interesting thing that I've decided I've been doing for the last maybe 10 or 12 years or so. Before that, I used to say, this is where you got to go to get a slice of pizza in New York, right? And then I realized, from a Buddhist perspective, if you will, the best pizza in New York is the one you choose to make the best pizza in New York, right? Because pizza for me in New York is like a cigar, right? I can smoke a cigar. You can smoke the same cigar. You'll have a different experience. Cigar, right? So for me, my favorite pizza is the one that I like when I'm having it in the moment, and I like Joe's Pizza down in the Village. I like Joe's Pizza, and Joe's Pizza for me is thin crust. It's got a slight sweetness to the sauce, and I'm into it. So Joe's Pizza for me is like, if I had to go, all right, let me get in the Uber and go get a slice of pizza, I'm going there. But I love telling people who come to New York who say, well, what's the best pizza to go to? And I go, it's going to be the one that you find, that you're going to say, what is the best pizza for me in New York? It's the one on 18th Street and 9th Avenue where the guy's from Mexico and he makes this great sauce and they play great music. And that's your experience with pizza in New York,
You said the experience. It's not just it's everything. It's
everything around
sometimes
it.
a journey getting to it. It's
Sure.
the thing when you're there.
Sure. Yeah. It's the one that's open till 2 a.m. that you can always go to when you're done, having beers or something, or you're like, it's your slice. The best slice in New York City is your slice in New York City,
Yeah. I think there's a place in Santa Monica where somebody had gone and reverse engineered. They actually brought in a chemist and they I know minerals or something with the water to make it just the same formulation as like the water in New York, because they say
Joe's Pizza. That one is actually called Joe's Pizza.
Really? Okay.
It's affiliated to the Joe's Pizza that I'm talking about in New York, and the one on Carmine Street. Yeah.
I always do this when before I've had lunch, and I haven't had lunch yet. I'm going, God, that sounds so good right now. That sounds wonderful. Now, the next question I got for you: if you're going to sit down, talk story, you're going to be sitting down having coffee with 3 people. So 4 of y'all at the table, living or not. Who would those 3 people be? You would want to sit down with?
Albert Camus, Charles Bukowski, Charles Bukowski, and my mom.
I love that. Yeah.
My mother and I we were really good at shooting the shit together. So I can only imagine what kind of fun, thought-provoking things my mother would be able to offer. Camus.
Yeah. Plus, as you get older, don't you? I've been doing this thing lately where I just, for a micro split fraction of a second, I experience something with one of my kids or in life or in business or something. I'm like, man, I'd love to. It's like just my grandfather. I had a wonderful relationship with.
Sure.
He's not with us anymore. Been over 20 years, but it's like I want to talk to him. I always, hey, what do you think? Yeah. And it just a fraction of a second, because that it's. I wish I had the presence of mind when I was younger, I knew the questions that now I would like to ask. That kind of, so that would be wonderful. In fact, it's funny. I mentioned Alan Watts, Anthony Bourdain. Yeah. I would have them and my grandfather. That would be my turn.
Totally, and, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm coveting the fact you had a chance to talk hot dogs with.
Yeah. Okay. Hey man, I just listened. I just overheard the fucking conversation, but it was amazing.
That is awesome. But no, it's wonderful. Now, let's go back to when you were young. Next question: who was the first celebrity crush you had when you were a kid?
So the first movie that I saw as a child was the King Kong, the Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange version of King Kong, right? That was the first movie I saw. Super traumatized. I saw it at the Greenwich Village Theater. It's a 1-screen theater in Greenwich Village. It's no longer there. I think it's an Equinox now or something. But my dad took me to see that, and I was like, whoa, pretty cool. So I was in love with King Kong. King Kong was my first, I want to be King Kong, right? But I didn't want to be King Kong because I watched and I was like, wait, he climbs to the top of the Empire State Building or the World Trade Center in that version of it, of which I used to skate my skateboard around the World Trade Center Plaza is what I would do. Mm-hmm. My mom would take me and I would skateboard around there to learn how to skateboard and stuff when I was a kid because it's super smooth, it was a marble floor, the plaza in the middle between the two towers. Right. And so I saw that and I was like, no shit. And then the next thing I saw was Scarface. My dad took me to say Scarface. He didn't,
okay.
He didn't
wow. Okay.
He didn't
So
give a shit about ratings or whatever.
Oh, neither did my parents.
They were like, "Fuck it, I can smoke a cigarette in this theater. I'm bringing my kid to see." Right. So we saw Scarface, and then I was like, "That guy's incredible. Who is that guy?" So I started, getting into and learning about as much as I could about Al Pacino, and as much as I have always honored and loved him and have learned so much, and I had the honor and the privilege of sharing some theater space with him. I'm a member of the Actors Studio, and there was a moment where they asked me to become a member of the staged readings that he was doing of Salome, of Oscar Wilde's Salome at the studio. And I had a chance to do it. I did it for almost 6 months or something in the studio. It was fantastic. But when I was seeing him, and I was like, something about me, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, where I am somebody who is addicted to origin. I want to know where shit comes from. And so,
right.
And so I was like, well, he can't be the guy who invented this amazing way of acting. So who taught him? Right. And where did he get it? And where did he get it? And it landed at Montgomery Clift.
Yeah, isn't that the beautiful thing about acting? It's people say stealing. It's not stealing. It's like you're carrying on a tradition. You're getting your stuff from somewhere else.
You're paying homage to, absolutely. And for me, it landed at Montgomery Clift. I think before Monty, and I'm a huge Bogey fan. Like fucking Humphrey Bogart is my dude. So I know that, because no one knew his light better than any other person in Hollywood was Humphrey Bogart.
Really,
no one knew where his light was better than him. And no one knew how to forget where their light was better than Montgomery Clift. So from Humphrey Bogart, in my eyes, personal opinion, I'm sure there's differing opinions out there, but for me, the shift it went from Humphrey Bogart to Montgomery Clift, where Humphrey Bogart knew where his light was, where to stand, where to put his face, where to get the best shot. And Montgomery Clift didn't give a shit about where the camera was, where the light was. And he wanted to just be in a scene with a person. Right. Talking to that person. And what was most important is what he was trying to do to the other person. The action is what we call it as actors. What's your action? What are you doing to the other person in a scene? Because that's what drove me, and that's what clicked me into my creative engine, if you will. I was always struggling early on in an acting class with what we call the objective, right? Is what's your objective? What's your character's objective? Which ultimately what you're asking is, what does my character want in this scene? And I was always having trouble with that. I was always having trouble. I didn't know why, but I was always having trouble. And then I talked to my mom, and this is why I said I'd have her sitting there with Bukowski and Camus, because I asked my mom, I was like, what is going on here? This is ridiculous. I'm like having such a hard time. And she said, well, to quote Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. And she said, well, the problem you're having is that you are not a selfish person, Felix. You, the person, are not selfish. And an objective.
So did you flip it and think about it in terms of like, what do they want?
What am I doing to them? What am I doing to them? Because still, a want is still for me a selfish act. And so I say to myself, so she said, it's going against your grain. You're naturally a selfless person, not a selfish person. And so therefore you have to figure out a way to act for something, for someone else, doing it to the other person. So what is it that you're doing to them, for them, of service? You're of service, Felix. And when she said that, and it shifted in my mind, I saw that. I saw that clearly when I started watching Montgomery Clift's movies and his work, where he didn't give a shit about what he looked like. Yes, he was Hollywood in that regard, but I meant in movies, in scenes, he was always about what he's doing to the other person, affecting the other person in the scene, and that. So to me, to answer your question directly, Montgomery Clift. Yeah.
Well, quintessential movie? If you say somebody, Montgomery Clift, this is going to be the thing you got to see to be able to see him at his best. To see him what film would you recommend?
I'd say anything that he did with Elizabeth Taylor. He did a Place in the Sun. He did From Here to Eternity, Giant.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time. That's just like everybody was in that.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra's performance was ridiculous. ridiculous in that.
And Ernest Borgnine was really not a nice guy. Yeah.
So strong,
and he was
so strong as the meanie. Absolutely. It was tough. But, that's pushing in the world of after. Montgomery Clift had a very life-altering car accident in his career and in the middle of his career. There was a shift there. But before the accident, I want to say A Place in the Sun might be the one where you just go, what is happening right here? Like this guy, and to the point where he's like, here's the camera and he's invading the space. Like you have to wait for him to move. If you watch a scene that Montgomery Clift is in, the thing that I always like to tell people to kind of bug them out a bit is you pull up a scene that Montgomery Clift is doing with someone and then don't look at Monty, look at the actor or actress that he's working with, and you'll see the light fade off her face, on her face, into her face.
Really?
He was literally not aware. And I don't want to say not aware like he was dumb, but just didn't
like
care.
The technical wasn't the thing he was dialed into at the moment.
About what was happening to the other person and what they were doing in the scene. He was a storyteller in that regard. And to me, that's I still carry that with me today.
Yeah, my guy was Cary Grant. I once did this little narrative thing, and I remember one of the lines he said the greatest part Cary Grant ever played was Cary Grant. Because it was that was the thing, and I think that you liken that to Humphrey. Although Humphrey Bogart also did, he pulled and stretched in places that where he was somewhat different, but he's still in that era of this is who this man was. He knew exactly how to stand, and I think and there were moments, where towards the end of his career where he shifted a bit. But yeah, Montgomery Clift for me will always be. Yeah, well, since my daughter is out tonight, I'm going to go jump on to the streamers. I'm going to have a little movie night with myself, a little date night with me and the dog.
Good.
Now, the next question I got for you, if you're going to be living on an exotic island, somewhere you want to be, somewhere that's beautiful, you're going to be there a whole year, right? There's no streaming, so you're going to have to bring one CD with you if you want to listen to music, just one CD, and one DVD, a movie you can watch over and over again. What would that CD be? What would that DVD be for you for the whole year?
I could watch Miller's Crossing over and over and over again. Miller's Crossing is an Ethan and it's a Coen Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, the Coen Brothers film. It's affectionately the Irish version of The Godfather. It takes place inside of the Irish Mafia. And it's a struggle. Albert Finney plays the head. There's so many fine actors. Steve Buscemi is in it. Gabriel Byrne is our lead. And it's just a fantastic. John Turturro is in it. And it's just this power struggle between two families in a mafia, but it takes place in and around the sort of world of, Ethan, the world of the Coen brothers where it's, the language is theirs, Joel, Ethan write these incredible dialogue pieces that are just music to my ears. So I could sit and watch that over and over and over again. And as far as music goes, I'm such a fan. I have close to 5,000 vinyl records in my collection today.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, isn't it great to know? Like, I remember there's a friend of mine who worked in TV in Dallas, and he went to work at WGN. And he's like, listen, I know you love music. I'm tired of schlepping all these things. He had these 2 boxes, moving book boxes of albums, which have traveled with me because he's basically, it's to where he didn't just want to give them away. He wants somebody who would take care of them. Even if I'm sitting there going, I need to go into storage and find out what vinyl I got. Cause that's like, I got a beautiful studio set up here. And I'm like, I don't have a turntable.
Yeah.
It's like, it's coming back. I got to do that thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I had to, I could listen. There's a group that very few people know about. It's a group called Danny Wilson. And Danny Wilson is a group that came out of Dublin, Ireland. They're Irish, but they don't sing in a very traditional Irish way. But there's their first album, one of 2 that they released, was called Meet Danny Wilson, and I know every lyric to every song on that record, and I could listen to that over and over and over again. And they were not famously, but pop culturally connected to Something About Mary, because in the film Something About Mary they use a song that Danny Wilson, the band is called Danny Wilson. The leader and songwriter is Gary Clark, and Gary Clark wrote this song called Mary's Prayer. And it was used in something about Mary, and so it kind of resurrected the band's work for a little bit. But yeah,
wait, was that the song at the very beginning, kind of towards the beginning? The guys is playing the guitar, and the camera pushes in past them to the opening. Okay,
sure,
yeah,
and
okay,
and it's the album's called Meet Danny Wilson, and it's just it's. I don't know. It was the music. It was the album that I was listening to when I was lying to my friends growing up in New York, saying that I was listening to hip hop and I was listening to the cool in music that was happening at the time. And then little did they know that I was listening to Danny Wilson in my headset.
You had Beastie Boys, the rap.
Beasties, and I know them all. I got them all. I love them all. I've listened to them all. But when it was time for me to just be for myself and just have the music that was just for me, I guess eventually became called the guilty pleasure stuff is Danny Wilson. I love them. I love that band.
Very nice, very nice. So you're set for the whole year there. Now, the next question I got: if you're going to be defining beginning to end, stem to stern, what is the definition of the component parts of a perfect day for you? From time you get up, time you go to bed. What if you okay, this is a perfect day. These things happened. I got to do this stuff. What would that be?
Right off the bat, not being forced to wake up, but waking up when I wake up.
You don't know how often I hear that.
Yeah.
A slow start to your day.
Yeah, when you're forced to wake up, there's a jarring effect to it. And I'm a meditator. I meditate twice a day. I do Vedic meditation twice a day. And so for me, it's harder. I've experienced the being jolted out of a meditation, and it's hard. It's kind of like getting the when you're coming out of if you're scuba diving and you're coming out of the water too fast, you get the bends or whatever they call it. But so being able to wake up when I wake up, not because I have to wake up, but when I wake up, having the quiet of my meditation there. I do meditate with my dogs. I let them out of their room and I let them into the bed. So they come and they sit with me and they meditate with me, which is always nice. The younger one's a little noisy, but that's okay. She's just always, while we meditate, but so I meditate with the dogs, and then I walk. I move my body. I go for a walk. My partner and I, when we're lucky enough to be together at certain stretches, we will walk them together. And you go for a walk, and then you come back, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to. That's from start to finish. When you are able to live a day where you can do. Everything you do is not because you have to, but because you choose to. That to me is a perfect day. Ending.
Yeah, I think in general, that's the same way I am. Yeah. It's like that vibe where you're like, when I know I've got something I have to do, and it's not necessarily exactly what I want to do, and it's coming up later in the day. That's on my mind all day. Like, yeah.
I mean, going for I just want to be clear about it. Like going to work. Is to, if I'm going to go and shoot a scene with, Kevin Bacon or Julianne Moore or any of my favorite actors who I've been lucky enough to stand and hang out with recently, that's not something you have to do. That's something you want to do. And that's something you get to do. Right. And so it's different. Like, that's not that. I just mean like when you go, I'm being forced to do something I don't want to do, So for me, a good day, start to finish, is doing that, having that quiet moment, that gentle bring in, allows you to, be grateful for waking up and being grateful for having another moment to try this all over again. And then, living a day where the day takes you,
And the best way possible, going with the flow.
Yeah. Where the day takes you.
Now, last couple of questions. If you weren't doing this for a living, this was not available to you. This is just not, there's no more TV, no more theater. What's the number 2 choice career-wise that would bring you joy, you think?
Being of service in some way. As long as I can be of service in some way, I think I'll be okay. I think I will still feel like I'm contributing in a way that one should, that every one of us should in the world that we're living in the existence that we have. So some kind of servitude, whether it's teaching, cooking for people, doing something of service, being of service to our society.
Yeah. The last question I got, let's say you got that DeLorean, you could pop back into time when you can meet up with yourself at 16 years old. You got a piece of advice to give yourself for a few minutes. You've got a moment to either give yourself advice to make that moment a little easier, better, whatever, or put yourself on a little bit different track. Yeah. What would that piece of advice be to 16-year-old you?
So this is always, it's interesting. I've been asked this before, and I've given this one a lot of thought since that last time I've been asked this. My initial answer was always to be okay with however the thing goes, like however it goes, man, you be okay. Everything will be okay. This too shall pass, right? This too shall pass. But also, you're talking to a man, Mark, who every day before he went to bed, his mother would say 3 things to him before he closed his eyes in bed. She'd say to me, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." She'd say to me, "There's not a thing in this world that you cannot accomplish. If you can think it, it's possible, and remind yourself of that." And then she would say to me that whenever I feel out of place, unwanted, weird, different, outlier, unique, strange, nerdy, all these words that you think are outside of what you're supposed to be doing, that I needed to always remind myself that, and she said this to me verbatim, she said, "Remember, your father and I made you. We chose you. We decided to go into a room and make you. So you came into this world wanted. You were wanted in this world." And that
beautiful way
always,
of,
right? And that should always allow for you, whenever you're in a moment of insecurity or of doubt or whatever, just remind yourself, I was wanted in this world. I'm wanted in this world. I was brought into this world because I was wanted. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't a, fluke. I wasn't an accident. I was wanted. And so I'm of value. No matter what, I will always be of value because I was wanted. And so that being said, I would go back to my 16-year-old self, and I just recently watched a scene in a show that somebody sent me, because they said, this is who we think you are, Felix, and so we want you to see it. I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a great question is asked of a character, and he says, it's not that easy. And she says that one character says to the other character, "What do you think is the biggest, the worst piece of advice that you received?" And he says, "It's not that easy." And she goes, "No, I mean, it could be. And he said, No, that was the worst piece of advice I was ever given. It's not that easy, because it is that easy. And you just do it. You just do it. And you find that when you do it, it's done and it's easy. So whenever anyone says to you, it's not that easy, it is that easy."
That resonates, because that's something I got to tell myself more often. Certain things, because sometimes you just jump into it and do it. Next thing you know, it's done. You did it and did it well,
And so the only thing that stops us is this idea that we think it's not possible, that we think it's not that easy, when in truth, it is that easy. And just do the thing you have to do. And next thing you know, you've done it and it's easy.
I so appreciate you taking time out with me today. I really, I'm looking forward to checking out Sirens. I mean, I'm a fan of Millie Alcock, because there was a show called Upright. There was an Australian show she did. And I can't think of his name, as a comedian, but it was such a cool little show, and that's where she came on my radar. And I mean, like you mentioned, Kevin Bacon, Julianne Moore,
Megan Fahey is fantastic. Josh Segarra, we have Bill Camp, Glenn Howerton, Brittany Olford. They're all just so, the crew is tight, man. The crew is really super tight.
Well, man, thank you so much. And hey, if you have that opportunity, if you need somebody to sit the dogs for you, so you can be on the Rookie again,
I'm literally ready to break the bank, Mark. I'm like, let's see. I don't care. Like, how much money do you guys need? But they're great. We have a good team, and they love our pups. One day I'll be affluent enough to fly them wherever I go, so they'll just be with me wherever I go.
You know where we're at. We'll get them on the beach. I'll take care of them. I'm sure my dog would love the company.
Totally.
Well, my friend, I appreciate you greatly. Hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up down the line.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, there you go. Felix Solis. Really enjoyed the conversation with him. Very talented guy. The new show, Sirens, on Netflix. Love his character. In fact, he's one of my favorite on the show. Of course, the cast, Megan Fahey, Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon, Glenn Howerton, also Millie Alcock. Really love her work. All the way back to, I think, 2019, she did a show with Tim Minchin, an Australian show called Upright. But again, the show is called Sirens. It's on Netflix. Check it out. Felix knocked it out of the park. Now, do me a favor, if you would, pop open your podcast app and make sure to follow Story and Craft. That way you get notified every time we have a new episode. Also, make sure to like the show, leave a review, thumbs up, and all that kind of good stuff, because it helps people to find Story and Craft, which I appreciate greatly. Also, everything you could possibly want to know about the show, it is at storyandcraftpod.com. Pop on over, check it out. All right, I'm going to head on out. But as I always say, thank you so very much for making what I got going on here part of whatever you've got going on. Another great episode coming up a few days away. Look forward to seeing you then right here on Story and Craft.
That's it for this episode of Story and Craft. Join Mark next week for more conversation right here on Story and Craft. Story and Craft is a presentation of Mark Preston Productions, LLC. Executive producer is Mark Preston. Associate producer is Zachary Holden. Please rate and review Story and Craft on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can subscribe to show updates and stay in the know. Just head to storyandcraftpod.com and sign up for the newsletter. I'm Emma Dillon. See you next time, and remember, keep telling your story.
Fun fact, you can't get pregnant every day. You're only fertile for 6 days, ovulation day and the 5 days leading up to it. Natural Cycles is the only birth control app that can pinpoint your fertile window by analyzing your hormone-driven temperature trends. It's more than just a basic cycle tracking app. Natural Cycles is the only FDA-cleared and CE-marked birth control app, and has helped millions prevent and plan for pregnancy naturally. Save 15% when you sign up today with code RADIO15. Learn more at naturalcycles.com.
Texting terms at unlock.com/SMS. Privacy policy at unlock.com/privacy-policy. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Terms and conditions apply. For full details, see unlock.com/legal. Actor portrayal.
Lisa, thanks for having me over. Your new kitchen is gorgeous. How'd you find the money to do it?
We worked with this great company, Unlock. They help you unlock the future value of your home to get the cash you need today.
So it's a home equity loan?
No, it's not a loan at all. There's no monthly payments and no interest charges ever. And you can use the money however you want. We were able to redo our kitchen and pay off our credit card debt.
Wow, Jack and I could really use this to finally pay off our old student loan debt. How do I get started?
It's easy. Just go to their website.
Text EQUITY to 865-865 to unlock the value in your home and get up to $500,000 in cash with no monthly payments and no interest ever. Pay off debt, improve your home, add to your retirement fund. It's up to you. Text EQUITY to 865-865. Text the word EQUITY to 865-865. Text EQUITY to 865-865 now.